You're listening to Celebrating Simple Life, the podcast. I'm Kimberly Evans, and I've been planning incredible events for the past 16 years. I'm passionate about connecting people, creating purposeful gatherings, and making the most out of every moment. Join me as we learn together how to find joy, celebrate the simple things in life, use events to grow your business, and have a whole lot of fun along the way. Every day can be a reason to celebrate. Cheers to Celebrating Simple Life. A few summers ago, we were putting in a new fence in our backyard and made sure to contact Sask Energy first. They want you to know what's below. Hitting an underground utility line can be costly and very dangerous. Always plan ahead. Get a line locate for any digging projects you have going on this summer, like if you happen to be building a deck or putting in a new fence. It's absolutely free to have Sask Energy come out, and it will definitely allow you to stay safe and save yourself the expense of contacting an underground utility line. Visit clickbeforeyoudig.com to request your free line locate today. Today on Celebrating Simple Life, the podcast, I'm chatting with Carmen Lepp, owner and designer at Carmen Interiors. Carmen has worked her way through many designs, both personally and professionally, including flipping and redesigning numerous houses and RVs. Her classic approach to creating a functional yet beautiful space and her easygoing spirit has grown her following and has even included being featured by Em Henderson. Besides getting to call Carmen my dear friend, I also had the pleasure of being her client when our family remodeled our home back in 2014. Her design concept made our very small house feel so much bigger and definitely more functional. Her most recent project is finishing up their third RV remodel with her husband so that they can take it out on the road for a family summer holiday. She is an absolute gem on the inside and out. So tune in to hear our conversation about functional, beautiful design and how to create a space that you want to spend time in. So tune in.
Hello, Carmen. How are you today?
I'm great, Kim. How are you?
So good. This is so lovely. We were saying it feels like a million years since we've caught up. And in this day and time, I feel like time has taken on a whole new concept of where am I? What time is it? What day of the week is it?
Totally. Well, I never know what day of the week it is.
Well, we're all joining your company then, I guess.
Well, there you go.
I love it. Well, I have so many things that I want to chat with you about today. And for my listeners who have not had the pleasure of following you or knowing who you are, I would love for you to introduce yourself and your business and give us a little bit of background on all things Carmen and design.
Oh, gosh, Kim. Okay, so I'm Carmen Lepp. I'm a mom of 3 kids, and that has taken over my life 100%. But in the past, I have worked as a designer at like flooring stores. I've custom designed drapes in Saskatoon, and then we moved to Cochrane about 5 years ago. And from there, when I moved here, I was coming off of a high of having a ton of design clients, and then moving here and nobody knowing what I did at all. I was starting fresh. I didn't know what my style was because I was in a new community where style was different than in Saskatchewan. So I really was feeling a void in my creative life. So I ended up starting an Instagram account, try to get people into my world and see what I did and what my style was. So I started White Shack, and from there I just started posting our home renovation, some of the past jobs I've done. I think I even posted your kitchen on there once, Kim from Moose Jaw.
Yes, I was going to touch on that at some point too. That's like part of our story together.
I love that time. Anyway, so I started posting these things and people started to realize actually who I was, because to me, I'm not the greatest with, describing myself in words or anything, but through pictures and through my creative touches, I feel like I come alive. So showing myself through visually on Instagram really helps create my business in a way. So I don't really have a business per se because I'm at home with 3 kids, but I'm trying to touch on all the aspects of my design and what I like to do so that when I am ready to start my business from home, that I have a portfolio to work with and people know who I am from there. That's kind of what I do.
I can speak to this is that if you want to just go and have home design eye candy, you just scroll through Carmen's White Shack feed, and it is so beautiful. I have had the pleasure of being in a few of the homes that you have, your own homes that you obviously have your own signature style in your own house, besides what you're able to do for clients. And you just have this relaxing way about you where I feel like what I would compare you to is like Joanna Gaines. That's what I would say.
Oh, wow.
There you go. Take that. Take that compliment.
I'll take it.
I feel like you just have this just casual yet clearly gift in ability of design, because you walk into your space and it feels so comfortable, but yet everything has just, I don't know, it feels like you just threw it there and didn't try, but it just landed perfectly. That's like that's how I would describe it, you know? Like, it's like what all of us dream of wishing that we could do, because you see like magazines or different things. We're like, wow, how do you just have a few little books and one knick-knack sitting on that shelf, and it just looks so effortless, and you try it and it's like more of a nailed it type of scenario. And then anyways, I just love, and I would say that that's sort of where you and I started getting to know each other. We've known each other for a while. And have had some fun girls groups of mutual friends and things that we started getting to know each other in initially. And then when I moved away from Saskatoon for a little while to Moose Jaw, got you to do the design on our little house kitchen and main floor for us. And that was so fun working together with you on that project, because I knew what I wanted. Like I have a sense of style and a sense of what I know I want something to look like, but to actually get it to that point. And I had never lived in a house that was 800 square feet before. So
not many people have.
Right? With all four of us in there. And so having your design, honestly, was my husband and I, Jesse and I talk about it still, where we're like, that was like our favorite house that we have lived in. And we love the home that we live in now. We love it. And it is super nice to have more space, especially as our kids are getting older. But you were just able to transform. Maybe I'll share some of these pictures on Instagram stories as well. It's a little throwback, 2014. But you were just able to capture in this little space, which for me, like the house was Jesse's grandfather's. So we had been in that house many times before when it was not our own. And, you know, you don't think twice about it. You're just in somebody else's house, and that was what it was. But when we bought the house and had the ability to knock it all down, and we took that entire main floor to the studs, and
so
good. Right? And could just kind of be like blank canvas, fresh start. Now what? You just had this vision and came in there. And honestly, even in my house right now that is way bigger than 800 square feet, I had never had, and still to this day have never had, more cupboard space or more storage or more just perfectly used space than in that little tiny house in Moose Jaw because of the way you designed it.
Aww.
It was just amazing. I loved it. Loved it. So I just wanted to touch on a few of the things that you do. So one thing that I find that is so great, besides the fact that, I mean, you maybe would have even been called like serial house flippers for a little while in your life. Your poor husband.
We were at a marriage retreat, and someone asked, "What's an interesting fact about you?" And both of us looked at each other and were like, "We moved 9 times in the first 11 years of marriage." Like, that's crazy. And we didn't just move. We renovated.
Yes, we were not just moving into like, hey, oh, good, this house is nice and ready to just move into.
Oh, no. Man. No, let's move into a 16-foot camper on the driveway while we renovate with our 1-year-old.
Right. And here's the beautiful part about this. You're still married.
We are.
Throw up our gratitude for that, right? Because that is not for the weak of heart. My husband and I have we've renovated 4 houses together. Not nearly to the level that you guys renovate yours. And we also have lived in, I think our not 9 and 11 years. I think ours was 5 in
See, that's
10
good
years.
too. Wow.
Yeah, pretty good. And it's not for the weak of heart. Let's just leave it at that.
It's not. You really get the good, the bad, and the ugly in those situations.
You do, and somehow it's almost like having a baby. You like forget that it was painful and stressful and like all the things, and then you black that out, and the next project comes along or the next house, and you're like, we should do this again.
Oh, totally.
Right?
Totally. Yeah. We've just lived in this house now for 2 years, just over 2 years, and this is the longest. 3 years, and it's the longest we've lived in a house.
That's crazy, Carmen.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Well,
yeah,
our longest is 4 years, and we are currently at 2.5 years in this house. So I can No, I can promise you this. This is the first house that I've lived in that I knew was like forever home, pending that my husband doesn't surprise me with a condo in the tropics. That would be the only thing that would take me away, and I do not foresee that in the cards anytime soon. Besides houses and projects, we're going to touch on a few things because I want to hear a little bit about your in these renovations and designs. But besides houses, one of the really cool things that you have taken your design to is your RV, and you've not done that once, but twice also. Is that correct?
No, we've done it 3 times.
3 times. Somewhere, I'm missing one of your RVs in this story.
This was way back before kids. We had this tiny little, I think it was like a 1980s something Prowler, and it was $750. One day when I was working, I was like, Josh, we're buying this camper for $750. He was so mad at me, and he's like, it's gonna fall apart. Anyway, we took that thing. It was a 1973. I just got corrected. Okay. 1973 Prowler, and it had like the avocado green appliances. I reupholstered the whole thing. We had Hunter Douglas blinds in there. We had it was decor to the nines. It was totally impractical. No bathroom. Anyway, that was our first one. I don't have pictures of it, which is a shame.
And did you sell it or did you use it?
We sold it for $2,500, and I think we put $100 into it.
No way. Look at you.
Yeah. So no, since then we've done 2 trailers. We're just on the brink of finishing the last one. We were supposed to be gone on a trip all of April down to California, up the Oregon coast, but that got canceled obviously because of what's going on.
Yes.
So that one's kind of a sad story. So it's sitting on our driveway right now, just waiting for the summer camping season to start up. But we've taken it a little bit slower just while we figure out these times and homeschools and stuff. So
yes, totally. So
it's almost done.
How would you compare the process of design when you're looking at a house or commercial property versus RV, which is essentially a house on wheels? How do you come to your creative process on these things when you're doing them for yourself, and then also when you're doing them for a client? Obviously is a very different scenario as well, because you're not the only person that has the ideas then.
Exactly. So when I always look for inspiration. I was always like, through all the houses we've designed, there has been a different style to each of them, with a common trend a little bit between them. But when we were in Saskatoon, I started off with a little bit more of a traditional aspect to the home, and then we really went quite contemporary with our styling. And then we've come back to a little bit more cottage traditional, a little bit modern twist in there. It's kind of a composition of all those styles, but it feels right to us. Finally, we found the style that's right for us. But for me, I just find inspiration in all sorts of things. I like to keep my style a little bit classic. I don't like to do too trendy because I find I get sick of it really quickly. So, and then with the camper, there's no different approach towards it other than my home. Like, a lot of people think that when you're when you're redoing a camper that you have to use specific RV furniture or special chairs that fold up or couches that pull out. You don't have to. You can use residential, same thing as you would use in a home in an RV. So that's kind of fun to like put a home touches on an RV to make it feel a little bit more like home when you're on the road versus like the industrial wallpaper and gross brown colors they have in those RVs.
Yeah, totally. So how on this, so knowing that your trip will eventually happen at some point, but for right now, you unfortunately had to cancel it. But as you were dreaming up the trip that you were going to be taking in this for 5 weeks, and you're a family of 5, 3 kids, 2 adults, how did that idea of knowing that you were going to be essentially living in this for an extended period of time play into certain aspects of how you were designing it or ways that you were trying to make sure that it was functional? And I feel like that's one of the things that I've noticed a lot about your design is because I know you and know that you have young children. Obviously it's easy to look at a magazine or look at somebody's Instagram feed and look at something and say, oh man, yeah, that's all great, but that would never fly with whatever stage of life you're in or whatever the case may be. And I think that's one of the things that I love most about your ability as a designer is I know your life. So I know that you have young children, and yet you incorporate the things that are necessary for them into the design without it needing to kind of take away from it. And it kind of just fits in this like natural sort of way, which I don't think it's really easy to do.
No, like you gotta. So oftentimes my kids, when we're designing their rooms or something, they're like, I want all pink walls, or I want like green, or blah blah blah. So I just always take their ideas and then you just tone it back to, for example, what I would choose,
right? And
then throw in little things that they would like. So in the camper, I was trying to put myself in their shoes. We had this trailer we did it it's basically a couple's trailer. It did not have bunk beds in it. We took out a whole wall of wardrobes and put in bunk beds instead. So in that case, you're losing a ton of storage, which is totally impractical. So I had to find ways to add storage in different ways that weren't in the trailer before. But thinking back, when I was designing, I was putting myself in my kids' shoes thinking what would be fun for them and what would I like when I was camping to make it feel special, because camping is such a special time for us. So in this trailer, you're going to notice when I start posting more pictures of it, I put little drapes on each of their bunks so they could have their cozy little places. So although they're not like pink and blue, they're what I would choose for fabric, but to them, having their cozy little spot, that's like just so special to them. So there's kind of a balance between something that's fun for a kid, but also pleasing to my eye and functional for us instead of just making it totally kiddish, right? Totally. And then just adding hooks everywhere and just adding different storage aspects makes it functional, but still beautiful.
Remember the fun candies of the 80s? Fun Dip, Garbage Pail Kids, and bottle caps? If you are on the lookout for a creative way to cheer up a friend, show your significant other, bestie, coworker, and special people in your life that you care, I've curated an adorable, delicious, and unique retro sweet treat grazing box. A beautiful, delectable candy grazing box can be shipped right to your door or as a surprise to a friend's door to really make their day. Doorstep delivery is available in Saskatoon, and shipping is available anywhere in Canada. And because we could all use a little more joy right now, as a listener of Celebrating Simple Life, the podcast, you get an exclusive code to receive 15% off at checkout with the code CELEBRATE15. You can click right from home at celebratingsimplelife.com and use the code CELEBRATE15 because today is a great day to celebrate.
I love that. I know. I think that's challenging too definitely easier when kids are younger because they don't really have an opinion necessarily when they're really little. And then as they get older, as I'm sure you have found out,
Yeah.
they have strong opinions about what they like and what they don't like. And I know that you've addressed this on Instagram posts before too, but just talking about how your daughter likes to keep things and clutter things and have stuff. And my oldest daughter also is a collector, and my other daughter is very minimalist. And so they are both polar opposites, in their strategies. And in Moose Jaw, they shared a bedroom, and there was a very distinct line down the room, and they were much littler at the time. They were only 3 and 6, but it was already very evident as to what their natural bedroom personalities of how they like to keep things tidy and organized, or lack thereof organization. And so it's funny to see that develop. So what would be a few strategies that you would have, I guess, to specifically to give to my listeners who maybe do have kids that are collectors, or even a spouse, like having just anybody who's living in your home with you whom doesn't necessarily fall into the same type of style of even decor versus just how they manage their daily life and schedule and where they put their belongings or don't put their belongings. How do you manage that in your own house, and what tips could you give to kind of help address those things, to help make those things not be issues in homes?
Okay, so first I have to give a disclaimer. I am not very organized, and I am not always clean. So what you see on Instagram is not how I live my life all the time.
Let us just reflect and remind everyone in life that Instagram are little scrolling past snapshots of the life, and nobody is claiming that their life is perfect because it does not look like that. So good disclaimer. I will say the same for myself as well. Yes.
Oh my goodness. But when I am clean and organized, in quotation marks, baskets are just a dream. If you're organized or not, you can throw as much crap in those baskets as you want, right? So you can just like with my daughter, I'm still in the process. Like I posted about her room being cluttered, and I'm going to do another post of how we're renovating her room and how we're doing a new bed for her. And I'm really, in this meantime, she's sleeping on the floor on her mattress right now because her bed's being painted. So in the meantime, I'm saying, Taya, you have to put stuff away. Like, you cannot have anything on the floor. If I'm going to vacuum your room, there can be nothing on your floor. So put it in a spot. So we've tried to make everything have a spot instead of just totally random. Try to do it with my toys too. Just try to have divided baskets for different stuff so they're away. Right now, I've taken all the toys out of my living room, put them all in the storage room on some shelves where they can still access them, but they're out of view. And I'm just bringing little toys out per day with whatever they want to play with, instead of having a whole area that's dedicated to toys. Because they already have their rooms. They've got toys in their rooms. I don't need my whole basement to be toys. I do feel a little bit guilty for that. Like, I feel like, my kids can't just play. But I find they're playing more intentionally with the few toys they have. And this is nothing new. People know this. When your child doesn't have as much, they get more creative and they play more intently with those toys.
100%. No, nothing to feel guilty about. I mean, my kids they don't play with toys as much anymore. They are getting older. But I do remember that was something that I used as a strategy as well years ago, where when you pull it out, it's almost like you're going shopping in your own house for things, and they forget that these toys even exist. And so when you pull them back out, it's like a new fun thing to do. And COVID right now, while we've all been trapped in our houses, has kind of been a perfect example of that, where you're kind of trying to make things fun and do things that you normally wouldn't be spending this much time all together at home. But pulling things out and just not having it there, I still find that works with my kids, even at their ages, where all of a sudden I'll just pull something out, or I'll pull out a whole bunch of beads and jewelry making stuff that they've had for years that has been sitting in bins and craft supplies and all of that. But when it's sitting out and there's nothing else on their craft table and it's all cleaned up and only that is out, suddenly they're just like sitting there playing with it because sometimes the act of them having to clean up their like designated craft table area prior to pulling something new out is enough of a deterrent for them to be like, yeah, no, I think I'm just going to leave that for today. You know?
Oh, totally.
So if I either together with them and like, okay, we're just going to clean this up, and then I just pull out something else, they find it fun again, and it's interesting how that works.
Totally.
Well, and I do the same thing. I'm not really a fan of like a junk drawer or junk bins because I do like organization and I like things to be there. However, having children rocked my world in the organizational department, and I had to start coming up with new ideas that wouldn't like make my OCD go totally crazy, and we had to find a compromise. And as the bins, my kids both have just the basic kind of like IKEA, like 2x2 or 4x2 kind of shelves in their bedrooms with those bins, the canvas totes or baskets that pull out of them, and they each get a junk bin. And that for us really, really helped clutter, especially for Cassidy, who likes to collect things and is at an age now where I'm not going into her bedroom and pitching stuff. You know, like I used to when she didn't realize that I was taking it. She wouldn't even notice it was gone. There's the confession. She'll like listen to this when she's older and be like, Mother, I knew you were scamming things out of my bedroom.
But the worst is when they find it in the garbage.
Yes. And then you have to like tell a little white lie. You're like, I do not know how that got there. Like who on earth would put this in the recycle bin? That's crazy.
Heartbroken. I drew that for you.
I feel like we could do a whole episode of just like confessions.
Yeah. Totally.
Confessions as to what happens. But yeah, it really does help to be able just to have it tucked away a little bit. And then occasionally they both go through their junk bins. And when they do it themselves, they have so much more of a realization of like, do I need this? Do I not need this? And I think the more you kind of make it a conversation, like when we lived in our little tiny house in Moose Jaw, that became a big point of conversation in our house on a regular basis because we had just sold like 60% of our belongings in order to move into this little house. And the house was little. There was not room to have your stuff everywhere, nor was there room to have stuff that didn't really belong in there because there just wasn't the storage. And it felt so therapeutic and good to get rid of so much stuff that it really has made me more mindful. Even when like shopping now, I'll be in a store and I'll put something back because it doesn't tick the boxes that I've told it that it needs to tick in order for it to be coming home with me.
Exactly. And I think, honestly, everybody should live in a small space for at least, I don't even know, like 5 weeks like we do on our road trip. It really teaches you how to minimalize your living. Like our kitchen, for example, our kitchen right now, I have 2 upper cabinets in my kitchen. And there's mostly wall space and there's a wall of pantry. But everything has its place and there's no room for anything extra. And a lot of people would look at that and say, there's not enough cabinets in here, but I like it that way. I would rather have my cabinets full and a place for everything than have a bunch of empty cabinets or cabinets full of a bunch of stuff that I don't use.
That's right. Making it feel less open and movable.
Yeah. So, and just making, just like you said, just thinking before you bring it into your home. And not just buy.
That's right. And I think if we can learn anything from what's been going on in these last weeks of all of us having to be more mindful and thinking about life in a very different way, I think that that's really what that comes back to. So I'm going to back up. I took us off on a toy tangent as I was asking you about these questions, but I want to back this up back to the renovation on your RV where you were talking about the little curtain and the little areas that you were making for the kids. So what other types of things as you were exploring the renovation as a designer and looking from kids' perspective and what you and your husband are going to need as grown-ups in this space for 5 weeks with kids, how did you walk through that in other areas and figure out, first of all, have you lived with 5 of you in a trailer for 5 weeks before?
Well, we do this every year. It's just gotten longer each year. Okay. So last year we were probably about 4 weeks around there. And we lived in our previous RV that we had renovated, and that's on my Instagram account too. That's the one with the green cabinets.
Yeah,
that was
so pretty.
Yeah, it was really cute. So that was only technically 23 feet. Bumper to hitch, it was a little bit longer. But inside, it was all one room. There was no divisions between space. So at the front was the queen bed. That was a really big thing for us. We need to make sure it's a full queen bed. Oftentimes in RV, it's a little bit shorter. And we're very tall, so our feet would hang off the end of the bed. You know how that is being tall.
Yes, totally.
So we make sure that we have a really good mattress in our RV, and it's a full length. We need to have room for clothes. And so last year, because it's all one space, we found, and because we were camping in April, we found that we didn't have a space. We didn't have a couch in it. So we didn't have a space to hang out in the evening other than outside. So we were huddled around the fire in a colder area like Oregon or something. We're sitting there huddled around our fire just so we can hang out in the evening while the kids sleep in the camper. So that was a big reason we decided to renovate again, is because we wanted a hangout space in the trailer in case we had bad weather, in case we just wanted to be inside for a little bit. We prefer to be outside when we're camping, but just in the case. So this trailer has a little slide out. So we never want like a huge slide out because we're just worried about the mechanisms and stuff. They're probably fine, but just for our own mind, we wanted it to be a little bit smaller for durability, I guess. So this one has a little couch area. It's got the kids that can be curtained off. There's double bunks. And then the couch is actually a toddler bed that I bought it from IKEA, just a mattress. And so I reupholstered that to make it look beautiful for a couch. But our youngest son, Henrik, who's 2, will sleep there. So we will put him, I always want to find a space where I can move him out of the way while we enjoy our time in the evening. So we would have put him in the master bedroom to fall asleep and then eventually moved him back out onto the couch. The other nice thing is the master bedroom has a curtain, so we have our own space now. So that's really huge. We don't need everybody in the same room at one time. So just the different little spaces, even if it's just a curtain, it doesn't have to be a door. This trailer is only 24 feet as well, so it's not big. But trying to tick all those boxes was hard, but making it being like with ripping out the cabinets and making it our own and building within the camper, which is something we've never done before. We always just worked with the floor plan that was there. It was fairly simple to do, and we created a space that is unique to any trailer I've ever seen. So it's really our own space, and I think it's going to work great. I'm really excited to camp in it.
I love that. That is so great. I love following along on your design updates too, because it just is, I mean, all of us who have ever loved watching HGTV shows where you love to see the before and afters of things, it's just so cool to see it from a RV perspective as well, because it's almost like it's like a tiny house, the tiny house shows, right?
Oh, and I tell you, renovating an RV is really rewarding because it's so small, and it's like a sped up renovation because everything happens so much faster because there's not as much square footage to finish, right?
Right. Totally. Like, just makes you feel super great about yourself.
Oh, yeah, totally. You're like, yes, I'm done.
I love that. So what would you say then? So let's flip this then, and instead of talking about the RV, how then do you take this exact same theory of everything has a space, everything has a place, and making your home feel like a place that you really want to hang out in and a place that makes you feel relaxed and that you have areas designated to play games and to have dinner and to do different things in that works for whatever type of schedule and family scenario people might be in. How do you then walk through that for yourself when you're renovating houses as well as with a client in order to, I feel like that's like so many things to think of when you're creating a space, but I think that can often feel really overwhelming if someone is trying to just do even small things in their own house, because how do you finally just decide what's going to work where?
Well, it's easier in a smaller home, as you know. There are not many corners and extra rooms to like say, let's play games over here and let's eat dinner over here. You're pretty much compacted into only a couple spaces. So I actually like designing small spaces because it's actually quite a bit more tricky to figure out how's the space going to be used in different ways. And like, for example, your table in your kitchen in Moose Jaw, you didn't have a lot of room for a dining room, but somehow we managed to create that beautiful window bench, nice little table, the buffet across the room that was actually pantry and buffet all in one display cabinet.
Yes.
Little space. Remember that part?
Yes.
So it was just this beautiful space that could both be a lunch nook. You could have dinner parties there. But it was beautiful in every aspect. No matter which way you were going to use it, it was functional.
It was.
Yeah.
It ticked all of those things. And you had such a clever idea in that area of, which I would have never in my dreams thought of before, because I just don't think that way when it comes to, I design parties. So I feel like I get the design piece of it all, but when it's actually fitting, mine usually have less limits as to what can happen. And it's not so like, doesn't need to be quite so calculated, because I can like make do on the fly. If something doesn't work here, we'll just move it over here. It's not like a permanent forever type of scenario. And, you know, and so when you picked out the buffet that you were talking about of cabinets, we had like a big wall, and I'll share these pictures so you guys can visualize this, because this was maybe one of my favorite parts about this is there was a whole wall section which had cabinets on top and cabinets on the bottom, but they were like cabinets on bottom were raised higher, and you actually used upper cabinets for lowers in that space because they were tall, and it created this feel that felt like it was a bit of a bar, and we had this under cabinet lighting that lit the top part of that bar, and when you had wine glasses and stuff sitting on there, it really felt like a fun space to use as a bar. And we also were able to store like games and like things that we used at the table there. Yeah,
behind closed doors. Yeah. And I think when I go into other people's houses, just like you had been into your father, or was it his grandpa's house?
Yeah, Jesse's grandpa.
Yeah, Jesse's grandpa's. So you'd been in there many times, and you probably, like most people, walk in there and you feel stuck because it's like it's the way it was, and you can't imagine it any other way. So having someone else come in and say, I've never been in this space, I can picture this here, this here. It's always like a second set of eyes can really open up the brainstorming and the ideas of what possibly could be in those spaces.
Yeah, 100%. And it was fun, too, to be able to show the house to Jesse's family members who had all spent significant time in that house. We were a little bit nervous at first because this was now a late grandfather who was no longer around, and we wanted to make sure that we were doing justice to this house that we had bought, and we got to continue on living in the home there afterwards after they were gone, and they were very special people to us. And so to be able to go in and you're gutting their house to the absolute studs and hoping that you're sort of keeping the life of this little house kind of intact versus feeling like you're just ripping things apart for no reason. And every space that we showed for family members that lived near that were able to come and see it in person, and those that didn't, we sent pictures out after we were all done, and all of them were absolutely wowed with what a transformation it was, because they had only ever seen it the way that it was, and it was such a tiny house, and it had so many different separate little rooms in it initially that just didn't flow together, and it just made it feel even smaller than it was. And once it opened up, it was amazing how 800 square feet felt like a really big main floor for some reason, because it was also open.
I think it's because it was so much living space versus not as much bedroom space. So that's really good for, the flow. Yeah, just going into people's homes, I really ask them how they use their space. And I find that people with a lot of space, with lots of like extra living rooms and like double eating areas, like a dining room and like a breakfast nook, people get overwhelmed and not knowing how to use the spaces, because the way we typically live nowadays is in one space. Like you don't usually have a formal living room. It seems like people are drawn to more one space, like the family room or the living room, one of the two. They don't really, unless you have a really big family, utilize both those rooms to their max. So people kind of get lost how to use those spaces. So even thinking outside the box and changing it up and say maybe using a living room for a different purpose rather than just a living room, and just thinking creatively about it and getting a second set of eyes, like I said before, can just really help, and just figuring out how the family lives and what they need and making it work from there.
Well, yeah, and I remember discussing these exact questions with you about our space as we were trying to figure out the design in our house years ago. Mm-hmm. And I remember you asking that exact question, and I feel like that up until that point hadn't really ever been something that I had actually fully thought of when living in other homes before, because you sort of just assume that each space just has its space. Well, of course, this is what the kitchen is for. Of course, this is what the dining room is for. Of course, but when you actually think through life, especially with kids and ages and stages change so quickly, things that we were doing with our kids in our house in Moose Jaw aren't things that we have on the go in our house now because they're older. And so it's interesting to see how, like, even the things they're interested in, and like, we play a lot of games as a family, so that's important to us, and places that we can do that so that our games are stored in a place that are convenient to get to, not having to like go into the deep dungeons of your storage room and trying to like dig out a board game every single time you want to play. And that kind of loses its luster of wanting to do that activity in the first place if it's super complicated to access the things that you want to access, right?
Exactly. Yeah, just making your home functional for how you use it. You don't have to follow what everybody's doing. Think outside the box and just make sure it's right for your family.
I love that. So what would be a couple of tips that you could give right now, especially as all of us have been in our homes for probably way more extended time than we're used to in the last month? We were chatting about this before we came on. Like, I am used to working from home, so being in my house a lot during the week is my normal. Not to have my husband and kids around 24/7 that's not normal for me during the day, but it's been fine, and we've been making it work and all kind of figuring out our own rhythms and areas and stuff. But I think one of the things that I keep looking at right now is, and I think I do this on a regular basis too, just because I do work from home, where all of a sudden I'll be sitting in my home office, which is like right in the middle of the house, which I've had to rearrange that a little bit right now with other people around. But an open concept home office is really great when you like work from home by yourself. Not so great with the other companies.
Not ideal.
No, but I find myself looking around, and we hope to someday down the road eventually do some renos on our kitchen, and I find myself just like staring and looking around and almost losing myself in this, oh man, how would I maybe want this to be, or what could I move where? What would maybe be a few tips you could give, and not even from a renovation perspective, but maybe just from a freshening up, redecorating kind of perspective of moving stuff around, that you would give for people to just be able to make their space feel maybe a little bit fresh and more usable right now, and that doesn't need to be a big deal.
Yeah, so honestly, one of my favorite things to do, and you know, we've been on a budget. We haven't had just expendable cash to just do things. So it's always been on a budget. And I find it quite challenging and very rewarding to do anything on a budget. It's almost a thrill, because you can't just go out and buy whatever you want, right? You have to search, you have to thrift, you have to find, you have to reno, you have to paint. And when it's all done, you're like, wow, I did that for that price. So one of my favorite things to do in my home is honestly just shop your home. Go downstairs, find out what's in your storage room. If there's something that you haven't used for a while, can you paint it? Can you put a new picture in it? Can you put that piece of furniture somewhere else that you didn't think you probably could before? Could you use a table as a side table? Could you use, could you move some pictures? Could you stack some pictures on top of each other instead of just having one picture on your wall? Could you put a smaller one on top of a bigger one? There's so many things you can do with spray paint, with just moving stuff around. Pull out all your toss cushions, like your decorative pillows, anywhere in the house. Put them all in front of you and see if you can move them around into different rooms and totally change it up. Drapes, if you've got several kinds of drapes, just put them in different rooms if the colors work. There's just so many things you can do without actually spending a penny. And if you want to spend money, just go buy what you want for that space. That's great too. But right now, when nobody's able to just go to decor stores and just shop for hours and dream, just move stuff around and see what you can do.
I love that. I absolutely love that. I did that a little while ago with even just some pillows on our master bedroom bed. And I'm like, this just feels so fresh, even though it took 2 seconds. I don't know why I haven't done it before. And now every time I walk in there, and I've actually chosen to make my bed in the day, which I'm bad and don't always make my bed.
You're not alone.
Right? It just feels so good to just see something new. And for some reason, I feel like, I don't know if this is just me, but I don't think so, that it kind of just like sparks a different part of my brain where I feel like I just see other things differently then too, because this feels a little bit different, you know?
Yeah, totally. And honestly, like even I remember as a kid constantly moving my room around. Whether it was a good arrangement or not, I was always trying something new. And I still do that. I'm sitting in my living room like, maybe I'm going to move my living room around. Husband just stops. He's like, no, it's good. I love it back the way it was before. I was like, you're probably right.
I love that. So you should have known at a young age what you might have been when you grow up.
100%. Yes, I did. I did.
Well, this has been so lovely. Thank you so much for sharing these awesome tips. And I'm sorry that your vacation was canceled and that you have to refigure things out, but I am so very excited to see the pictures and the final updates of your RV.
Me too. Can someone come finish it for me?
Totally. Well, I am going to tag your White Shack Instagram in the show notes, and so that everyone can follow along and see all of the tips and design. And trust me, you guys, you just go on there and you look at her feed, and I just like take a deep breath. And there have been times where by random, like, you know, you never can know what Instagram's going to throw onto your feed. Like some things show up all the time, and sometimes you won't see somebody's post for a long time. But when yours to happen upon, and I'm looking upon it, and then I jump over to your feed and look at all the ones that maybe I've happened to miss because they haven't popped into the feed.
Yeah.
It's just, there's many times where I'm like, okay, going into this room right now and doing this, because it just gives me that like instant pop of like extra energy to just want my space to feel like me. So thanks for the info.
I love that. And that's why I do it, to inspire people. It's just, I love hearing that. So thank you for telling me that.
Oh, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today. I just love what you do and so happy that I get to call you my friend. So I appreciate all of your insights.
That was so fun, Kim. Thanks so much.
This show would not be possible without you, my incredible listeners. It would mean the world to me if you would subscribe to Celebrating Simple Life on Apple Podcasts or download and listen on Spotify, Google Podcasts, or wherever you choose to listen. If you really want to make my day, leave a review. These reviews, ratings, and sharing screenshots of podcast episodes that were engaging for you on your Instagram stories and tagging friends that you think should hear the episode too really helps the podcast grow. It makes me so happy that I often select reviews to read on the show, and if yours is chosen, you will receive a special gift from me. Thank you for being a part of my mission to connect stories of business and life. Cheers to Celebrating Simple Life.